All right, so this is me, Hayden Kalavahea, discussing my online presence and habits and my personal views on the topic. So let's get started with the history. So actually, in like middle school, a little bit earlier on, I kind of fell into a lot of online circles just because I didn't have like as much. Hope that doesn't mess anything up. Just stuff to do in general, like in real life. I didn't particularly spend a lot of time playing sports. I had a lot of just internet access growing up, and that really showed. I ended up spending a lot of time just in online circles, like sometimes really political. Like I would kind of move in and out of like these actually like kind of radical online right-wing circles, and it was just not a good use of my time, right? So throughout high school, I kind of like one step at a time had these irrational but helpful realizations, quote unquote, that like my life would not be particularly meaningful if I let my use of the internet and like these places that I spent time, places that I spent on online, a lot of my time there, just letting them define me. So I would just kind of like spur of the moment, like would join sports and trying to spend a ton of time doing music, which luckily I had before, starting in like 4th grade, right? Just band, which was actually very helpful for just goal-oriented movement. That really developed in high school though. It's kind of like neo-Ludditism that me and my close friend group we have. This like almost actually entertaining from an outside perspective. We have realized lack of touch or lack of being in touch with current online topics and just political situations. We generally don't care because we don't hear about them, because we try to spend as little time online as possible, even in news sources, which can downstream affect us, but we just because it is so downstream, we try not to pay much attention to it, which has done a couple things. It's been allowed me to place more value on real world successes, right? Just experiences and forcing myself out of the house to do things, and emphasizing physical media. I'm a big proponent of physical media. I try to outsource things to like a physical book or a notebook as much as I can, just because I do think that's particularly helpful. Better tactile cues, stuff like that. My screen time on my phone is like 4 hours, which isn't particularly good. I mean, you'll see people who don't care as much about this stuff as I do that end up having like 1 hour. A lot of people I know like just don't do anything above an hour, which I admire. I'm not there yet. But yeah, I spend most of my time on YouTube, which is actually on my computer typically. That 4 hours doesn't include my computer and school stuff. I haven't checked it, but that would be probably more, honestly. YouTube, like fitness, survivalist content, just informative videos on like music and things that I'm trying to learn that I don't have any physical media, right, to help me with yet, besides like records music wise, and that's about it. I'll watch Netflix as a socialite. It really like, if I'm going to end up watching something and I'm well within my period of time where I wouldn't rather be reading, or I have been reading that day, or like doing homework or something else that I consider productive, like I'll probably just end up on YouTube instead of watching Netflix. That's just kind of what I've historically done and how I end up spending my wasted time. Instagram and Snapchat, I use both of those. Snapchat just as a form of communication, just because it's very popular and people do that. Instagram, I try to stay out of the infinity pool scrolling by just avoiding the explore page at all costs, and if I do, I have a 15-minute timer, which has been working all right, decently. I'll ignore it, and that has been a significant source of driving up my screen time. So once I get rid of that, that'll be pretty epic. I use Spotify a lot. I listen to music, just focused listening, or I'll listen to music when I'm working out, Lassiter, Rage Against the Machine is absolutely amazing workout music for any modality of training, I've found. I try to defer to physical media when it's like focused listening like that, but I mean, I don't own every single record and or CD that I could ever want to listen to, so that makes it a little bit difficult. But, you know, I do what I can. But yeah, do try to not multitask very much, just because it's not focused and it's not how our brains have historically worked. If I'm doing something, I try to focus on that thing. The exceptions are, I'll listen to music when I'm training, and like driving, that's where, if I'm going to listen to a podcast, that's when I'll do it, unless it's just like walking around the house for the sake of listening to the podcast. Yeah, I try to get as much time, just no stimulation as possible, but I mean, obviously like 4 hours plus whatever I'm doing on my computer. Well, you can do the math on how well that's working out. The fruits of the internet, that's the only way a lot of people can realistically learn things that they want to learn about, right? Me included. I wish I could say that I learned everything from real people that I've met, and that's what I try to do, but that's not possible. I mean, like everything about scuba diving, it's like you end up having to look stuff up, like buying gear. Like I recently got a new this is the dive computer, right? This hooks up to my phone, and well, it's Bluetooth connected to my phone. All of my dives get logged onto my phone, and I interact with them on my phone to do stuff with that. I mess with the settings on this on my phone. Unfortunate, I know, but again, it's one of those, that's the cases. I would never have found like the blacksmithing shop where I made this in 8th grade. I wouldn't have found it without the internet. I wouldn't have known who the guy was who owned it. While it was like a cool little anti-society thing that I did, you know, going and like blacksmithing your own knife, at the end of the day, it was made possible by the internet. Same with this sling that I made around the same time period, right? I got the ideas for the materials and the method of making from online, which is always regrettable, but it is often the only choice. And I think it's more just about how you go about the internet. I try to use it as a tool, and a lot of people, they really express themselves through the internet, and they get like social interaction through the internet. And that's where I think that we have really started shooting ourselves in the foot as a society. Yeah, even like job listings and stuff, I do end up doing those from, you know, the old panopticon, the phone. But yeah, overall, it's just the mass consumption of internet information has produced just a lot of bad things, like unrealistic relationships based on geography, which aren't bad in and of themselves, but I think we might just not know how that affects the mind yet. You know, this compromise of what I'm going to call focus economy, right? Just there's a limited amount of time that you can spend, not even time, but just focused effort that you can spend on certain things, even like within a certain period of time, right? You can increase the magnitude of that focus. And the internet is like just this constant drain valve that we have going, where you can just always like pick up your phone and just use a little bit of that effort. And it doesn't feel like focused effort, but it is taking away from that ability to focus on other things that historically people would have had. And like even their wasted time, right, in my opinion, was better used, because their wasted time was like serious, just sitting down, staring at the sky, taking a little siesta, whatever. Whereas we are, in our resting time, are continually focusing effort onto our phones, like whatever videos we're watching, Netflix series, etc. It has a strong effect, I think, on the perception of yourself. And while this can be good or bad, right? I mean, there's, you know, body positivity and stuff like that, and recognition of like racial issues that you can get positive information from. I think the fact that our identity can be so affected by the internet is a bad thing in and of itself, even if there are good effects. it just draws you that little bit more outside of the world around you, the people around you. And this is the root, I think, of what will become an AI virtual world focused future, until there is some kind of inevitable collapse, because I mean, climate change, everything's gonna fall apart at some point. In the nearer future, I think, than the later. If there are differences in our online selves and our real selves, I think it's very difficult for us to perceive them. And they'll bleed into each other. There's a feedback loop that I think is dangerous. We don't know how to separate these two things, right? Like somebody who's an online troll and just like messes with people on the internet all the time, like that is a part of who he is, no matter how much he tries to separate it. So, basically, I think the internet has affected who I am today significantly. There is no alternate reality in which I can change that. But at the end of the day, phones are panopticism. They are bad. And I will be returning to ancient ways and live in a cabin in the woods, hopefully on a mountain or by the ocean.